What's up everyone and welcome back. This video is titled Wife Takes Husband's Car to Mechanic, Sees Spouse's 50-year-old Lie. This one sounds interesting. His instruction had been explicit: take the car to the mechanic at the end of the street. He'll give you a duffel bag, but don't bring it home with you. He'll tell you where to take it. She had been driving her husband's car for less than an hour now, unsure of what was happening. She took the first turn she saw toward the mechanic. What they would find inside the car would change her life forever. When Hillary married Don, she'd been sure she was doing the right thing. They'd met while she was a freshman living in Los Angeles, and although her friends warned her about him, she couldn't help but love everything he brought into her life. Hillary was studying to be a nurse then, while Don was pursuing a course in finance. By the time they graduated, the two were madly in love. Hillary had no idea how much pain Don would bring into her life. Hillary and Don tied the knot when she was 28 years old. They'd been dating for more than a decade when Don popped the question. The couple found good-paying jobs and started their life as fast as they could. But although their home was filled with happiness, trouble would soon ensue. Hillary and Don's marriage turned sour when the couple decided to have a baby. Even though having a kid had been in the plan for the two for a long time, they couldn't seem to conceive. As time went by, frustration began welling in. The young couple blamed each other for their bad luck. But one dull Tuesday morning, all this changed. It had been 2 years since Hillary and Don tied the knot when Hillary found out she was pregnant. All the anger and frustration melted away immediately, and she ran and hugged Don. Before we continue, if you like this video, please like, comment, or subscribe. We'd greatly appreciate it. Now back to the video. But the good news didn't stop there. Don had been hunched over his desk, looking at his laptop. What he'd reveal would melt the words of Hillary's tongue. The couple had been living in a 8-story building apartment for the better part of their marriage. Don revealed he'd secured a home in a safe suburb outside the city where they could raise their child. He kissed Hillary's forehead as he shared his news, and she knew their lives would finally be perfect. She had no clue what her husband was doing behind her back. Hillary and Don moved to the suburbs on the outskirts of Los Angeles. The house was bigger than Hillary had imagined. It was perfectly placed in a gated community with a 2-mile walk between it and the beach. Hillary's heart swelled with joy as she and Don finally started their family. She'd meant to ask him how they could afford such a place, but excitement ate away her worry. It wouldn't be long before everything fell apart. Hillary and Don weren't 2 years in their new home when everything came falling. Hillary arrived home one evening to find police officers in her house asking her nanny questions. Don was still away at work, and there was no one in the house except the babysitter, who Hillary had recently hired. Excusing the sitter, Hillary welcomed the men in blue into her living room and asked why they were in her house. They hadn't even begun speaking when her phone rang. "Aren't you gonna answer that?" one of the police officers asked as Hillary muted her phone. It was a number she didn't recognize, and she couldn't be bothered to find out who it was. But when it rang for the third consecutive time, she excused herself and answered. She expected it to be a prank caller, but it was worse. "Hillary, honey, it was Don," and he was panting on the phone as if he'd been running. "I want you to listen carefully, okay?" Hillary looked across the room to where the two officers were waiting and nodded at them with a forced smile. "The police are standing in our living room," Don said. "I know. I'll explain later. Please tell them you have a work emergency and do exactly what I tell you. Okay?" Hillary gave a nervous laugh, thinking everything that was happening was a joke. Her husband always loved goofing around from time to time, and she knew this was one of those times. But there was a seriousness to his voice that had never been there before, and Hillary was starting to see that something was terribly wrong. "I'm sorry, officers," Hillary said from across the room. She shrugged her shoulders with a scrunch of her nose. "Work stuff." She calmly walked into the kitchen and asked Don what was happening. He didn't explain, only told her she needed to take his car from their garage and drive to their local mechanic. She was to receive a bag from him, and he'd tell her where to take it. Hillary drove out of their garage as calmly as she could. She was unsure of what was happening, but she knew her husband was in trouble. She reached the mechanics faster than she thought she would, hoping the police weren't on her trail yet. She didn't need to explain anything to the mechanic, who saw her and came running with a brown duffel bag. What was happening? The mechanic didn't answer the barrage of questions Hillary bombarded him with. Instead, he rushed to the car's trunk and fished out 2 large bags. He was halfway across the garage with them when the door flew open and several armed officers fell upon him. It turns out Don had been part of a massive crime syndicate in the city for years. He'd been using Hillary, their child, and home to cover his tracks and had succeeded for almost a decade. But there was something even worse. The worst thing the police revealed to Hillary was that Don had 2 other families in the city. He was an architect to one of the women and another, a celebrated screenwriter in Hollywood. After the police caught him, they revealed receipts of his activities, ranging from thousands of frauds, illegal possessions, and trafficking. Hillary listened attentively, with tears in her eyes. She knew her nightmares had only begun. That's the end of this video. Thank you for watching. As always, if you like this video, please like, comment, or subscribe, and we'll see you in our next video.